Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30 p.m. and I'll declare this agenda briefing forum is now open. I'd like to invite Councillor Anderson to read the Acknowledgement of Country.
Nang Jarapun Wajak Nunga Bujak Yankeni, Nija Bilia Barok. I am honoured to be standing on Wajak Nunga country, on the banks of the Swan River. Nang Kadich Nunga Mort, Ken Kadach Nija Wajak Nunga Bujak. Nang Kadich Nija Nunga, Burlia Kora Yeye, Bora Belpeni Morich, Nunga Kadijan Mort, Where Buja Yeye. I acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and respect past, present and emerging leaders, their continuing cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land which continues to be important today. Nang Yankara Balpeni Nunga, Belia Wemort Nija Buja. I thank them for the contributions made to life in the town of Victoria Park and to this region.
Thanks, Councillor Anderson. Item 4 on the agenda is announcements from the presiding member. 4.1, the purpose of the agenda briefing forum is to provide an opportunity for elected members to ask questions and obtain additional information on officer reports in the draft ordinary council meeting agenda. It is not a decision-making forum, nor is it open for debate. Members of the public that may be directly affected by an item on the agenda can make presentations, deputations, statements and ask questions prior to the matter being formally considered by council at the next ordinary council meeting. 4.2 is notice of recording and live streaming. All participation in the meeting will be audio recorded and live streamed on the town's website. The live stream will be archived and made available on the town's website after the meeting. 4.3, conduct of the meeting. All those in attendance are expected to extend due courtesy and respect to the meeting by refraining from making any adverse or defamatory remarks regarding council, the staff or any elected member. No one shall create a disturbance at a meeting by interrupting or interfering with the proceedings through expressing approval or dissent by conversing or by any other means. All questions and statements made by members of the public are not to personalise any elected member or member of staff. Questions and statements are to be directed to the presiding member, who may choose to call upon an officer of the town or other elected member to assist with responses. 4.4 is public participation time. There is an opportunity to ask questions and make statements at the beginning and the end of this forum. The opportunity to ask questions and make statements at the end is limited to those members of the public who did not participate in the first public participation time at this meeting. Public participation will be held for a maximum of 30 minutes. Any additional time must be by agreement from the meeting, and it will be in 5-minute increments. As per our usual rule, we try to limit questions to 3 per person and 2 minutes each for statements. However, if there are very few people present, we can be a little bit more relaxed on that rule. That rule is to ensure a fair and equitable opportunity for everyone who is present in the public gallery to ask their questions and make their statements. 4.5, questions taken on notice. Responses to any questions that are taken on notice that relate to an agenda item will be presented in the officer report for the ordinary council meeting agenda under the heading Further Consideration. Item 5 is attendance. We have all elected members in attendance. There are also a number of the town's executive management and staff led by the CEO, Mr Askew. There are no apologies and no approved leave of absence. Item 6 is declarations of interest. Mr CEO, are there any declarations of interest, please?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon. Item 11.4, Councillor Crozer, an impartiality interest. I have discussed this item with members of the community. Item 13.1, Councillor Crozer, impartiality. I have discussed this item with members of the community. Item 13.1, Councillor Devereux, impartiality. I have spoken to and heard from a number of residents who are deeply concerned about the impact of cars on the safety of pedestrians and cyclists on Rutland Avenue and other nearby streets. Item 13.1, yourself, Mayor Vernon, impartiality. I have had communications with members of the community about this item. Item 13.2, Councillor Crozer, impartiality. I have discussed this item with members of the community. Item 13.3, Councillor Crozer, impartiality. I have discussed this item with members of the community. And item 13.4, Councillor Crozer, impartiality. I have discussed this item with members of the community. Item 19.1, myself, a financial interest. This matter relates to my contract of employment.
Thanks, Mr CEO. Are there any other elected members who have an interest that they need to declare and haven't yet done so? Councillor Minson.
Thank you, Mayor. 13.1, impartiality. I've also had conversations with members of the community on this item.
Thanks, Councillor Minson. Anyone else who wishes to make a declaration? No? All right. On that basis, we will move on. Item 7 is public participation time, which I now open at 6:35 p.m. Have indication of some questions at this stage, potentially statements too. So first person on the list, Vince Maxwell, please come forward, state your name and suburb, and we look forward to hearing your questions.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Vince Maxwell from Vic Park. I've got some questions in respect to item 11.4, efficiencies in council agendas. First question is, the town is looking at ways to reduce its workload, and I'm all in favour of rooting out inefficiencies. It's a bit like Donald Trump and Elon Musk's dodgy in America. Anyway, I'm a bit concerned about the advice to remove the report on council resolutions progress, as it will be more difficult to know whether the town has taken direction seriously or not from the council. And currently there are incomplete items on this report that are 3 years old. One of the value statements of the town say we will be honest, accountable and transparent. So do you think that removing this report from the agenda will make the town more transparent or less transparent?
I refer that question to the Manager of Governance and Strategy, Ms Tucker.
Thank you for the question. Those council status resolution reports are really an audit tool for council and the administration to ensure that the resolutions are being actioned. Members of the public, when they're looking at a report to see what's happened with that, generally look at the actual item in the minutes to see what the outcome is. So it's sort of like for members of the public to search through a big resolution report. It's not really user-friendly for members of the public. That's why the minutes reflect the actual outcomes of those resolutions. So in relation to being transparent, all our council minutes truly reflect the outcome of the decisions of council. And if an item has been completed, that's put in that in the minutes, and anything that needs to come back to council is reflected in the minutes also. So we're very open, honest and accountable in relation to all our decision making when it comes to the council minutes.
Don't need to say anything, do I? The town is proposing to remove the minutes from external bodies because it takes up to 2 days, a month to troll websites to get these minutes and prepare agendas. Every one of these external bodies has at least one councillor or staff member on it, and they would be emailed the minutes after every meeting. So why can't these councillors or staff members just forward these minutes onto the governance so they don't have to go searching for them on the web, on the internet?
Ms Tucker?
Thank you. It's not always the case that the councillors are forwarded those minutes after the meeting. Sometimes it relies on the minute secretary from those external bodies to actually put things out. And so there is always a lag between the time the meeting happens and the minutes being published. And of course, it's up to that external body to publish the minutes on their website. So we should be referencing what they publish and not something that comes through a third person, even though it might be a councillor that sits from our town that sits on that committee.
From that, I'm gathering that the minutes that the councillors are given are different to what they put on their website, which sounds a bit absurd. But anyway,
I wouldn't go that far, Mr Maxwell. That's coming close to being sort of an adverse reflection. It certainly is the case that elected members who sit on some of those bodies, such as Mindarie Regional Council and Catalina Regional Council, receive the unconfirmed minutes shortly after the meeting they attend, but it does not become the confirmed minutes of the organisation until the following meeting of that body confirms those minutes, and after that the confirmed minutes appear in the agenda papers for the next meeting. So there is something about the timing of the minutes, but I don't think it's fair to say that there's any assertion that what elected members who sit on those bodies receive by way of minutes of the meetings they attend are not correct. Do you have another question?
If the council do agree to removing the minutes of external bodies and the council resolution report from the agenda, then it follows that governance will have less work to do, maybe 2 days a month. So with less work to do, I would expect we should get some benefit from that. And I don't suppose the town would reduce the number of staff. So what specific additional tasks would these governance officers do in those extra days?
Ms Tucker?
Thank you for the question. I wish we did have a reduced workload. Unfortunately, that's not the case. We're quite busy with lots of different things that the governance staff do. It's just not council minutes that this section manages. So there's lots of other different things that we're required to do. And so it's just a better use of staff time to better focus on those other accountabilities that the staff need to focus on.
Only going by what the report says, that this is taking time up, so we're going to reduce the workload. So, but apparently that's not the case.
Well, Mr
I
Maxwell,
do
you
have a
know the
statement
rules.
to make.
It's not a debate. If you want to move on to your statement, please do.
I was just paraphrasing the answer. Anyway, my statement is the report before us talks about reducing the town's workload. But let's be honest, reducing workload for whom? Where is the benefit to the community? Because I don't see it. What I do see is a proposal to remove the council resolution report from the agenda, a report that tracks the town's progress on the very decisions this council makes, and with no clear benefit to residents. So why on earth would we want to do that? Even more concerning, the report admits that this information would still be available, but only to elected members through a private portal. That tells me this isn't about efficiency, it's about control. If the town is already compiling the report for councillors, why not include it in the public agenda? What is being hidden? It seems transparency is being stripped away piece by piece. First, the annual audit's hidden, the lost money from cash in lieu of parking funds, the endless delays in delivering capital projects, and now even the progress on council resolutions is being tucked out of sight. So let me ask you this, is the town so embarrassed by its performance that it's trying to bury the evidence? One day some of you will find yourselves on this side of the room demanding answers, only to realise that the secrecy you helped create is now keeping you in the dark. That's how it always starts, not with a sudden collapse, but with one small decision after another, eroding accountability bit by bit. So the choice is yours. Will you stand for transparency, or will you be the ones who helped dismantle it? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Maxwell. Next on the list, Ojani Stockman.
Thank you. My name is Ojani from Left Lane. We've got a couple of questions in relation to, and it'd be no surprise, Rutland Avenue. The report notes the reputational risk and the need to keep the community and elected members informed to mitigate this risk. The report also notes that supportive local community members were engaged as part of the advocacy campaign. I have been actively engaged in this issue for more than a decade, and note I did not receive any correspondence from the town during this period. My question is, who were these community members and how were they selected?
Direct that question to the Chief Operations Officer, Ms Adams.
Thank you. Through the Chair. I'll have to look into that because my understanding was that the residents of Lath Lane were surveyed and it wasn't just to do with purely Rutland Ave. So if I'll take that on notice and come back to you, please.
Thanks, Ms Adams. We'll have to take that on notice, Ms Stockman, an answer will be provided in the agenda for the council meeting in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I don't think it's in relation to the survey, it was in relation to the advocacy efforts. That's how I took it.
So sorry, I'll just confirm. Ms Adams, is that what you understood the question to be that was being taken on notice? It's not about engagement through a survey of the community at large. It's about a reference in paragraph 6, I think Ms Stockman is referring to, of the officer's report that says during the advocacy campaign and the state election period, supportive community members were provided with information and guidance to contact their local representatives for further support.
Yeah, thank you.
Ms Adams?
Thank you. I will take that on notice and have that clarified.
All right, we'll take that on notice.
Thank you. My second question, the purpose of the advocacy was to secure additional funding required for the two-way option. The advocacy, I assume, focused on all sources of funding, and the effort, unfortunately, wasn't successful. My question is, when will the town draw the line and conclude it can't secure funding for the two-way option and put the one-way option back on the table?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, I don't have a definitive date. The town will only reach that point when we exhaust all options for further funding for the two-way option. And at this stage, the biggest source of the funding that we are seeking that from is from the state government.
The town has long been aware of the lack of safety for active transport users on Rutland Avenue, as evidenced through several reports over many years. I fear a serious or a fatal accident might be the only thing kicking this council into gear, and I truly hope that it won't come to that. So my final question is, considering the absence of any clear direction or commitment right now, can the town commit to installing traffic calming measures immediately?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, the town is currently seeking a contractor for the installation of some speed cushions.
I guess, could
So,
you also comment on when? Because my question is whether you can commit to installation immediately.
So, Ms Stockman, you are aware that there is a resolution of council for the installation of speed cushions on Rutland Avenue that was made at the end of last year, and I believe Ms Adams is referring to securing, or through procurement channels, contractors to deliver that work. So are you wanting to ask her when those contractors will deliver the work, or are you wanting to know an answer to something outside of that? Because clearly there is a resolution to install them. There is an issue about procuring contractors to do the work, and the answer is that they're in the process of being contracted at the moment. Ms Adams, are you able to advance it any further, as in where we're at with that procurement?
I suppose everything you said is correct, and we are in the process of trying to get a contractor. We don't have a contractor at the moment, so in relation to your question of installing them immediately, the answer is we can't, because we don't have a contractor in place, but we are looking to get one as soon as we can get a contract response.
Can I then clarify? Because when I read the minutes of the December meeting, it's my understanding that the council made a decision to go out for community consultation, but no decision was made to actually install the traffic calming measures.
Ms Adams, do you have the resolution to hand from December's council meeting? Because my understanding it was that it was resolved that speed humps were to be introduced, but there was part of the resolution for community consultation with the local area with regards to the proposal to install those speed cushions. And I think it was indicated by the officers on the night in question a timing of when they could conduct that community consultation, which would be by way of letter. I understood was going to go out to the community, letting them know their feedback was sought on this. I think it was indicated that that kind of consultation should have taken place, or should be able to take place, in late January. I do understand for some questions that were asked about it this year that it didn't take place in the time window that we were told in December it would take place, that it started maybe a week or two later than it was planned. Ms Adams, are you able to further advance that, please, for Ms Stockman?
Madam Mayor, I don't have the December resolution at hand, but you are correct, and we did undertake that survey for the community consultation.
Do we have a result of the community consultation that we're able to inform the community about?
Not at hand, but I do believe that there was a pretty reasonably even split between those for the speed cushions and those who were not for, but did clarify with some comments on locations where they would prefer speed cushions. So I think the best thing I can do is probably provide some information back and take it on notice.
All right, well, we can take that last part about it, about the outcome of that consultation on notice, which will put it in the agenda for the ordinary council meeting, so you'll be able to read it in advance. I'm sorry that I interrupted your questioning flow, Ms Stockman. I wanted to try and get as much information as I could. Is there something that comes out of that you want to further pursue? I'm trying to bring up the resolution for December for you.
I just think it's really important to get it clear, because when I read the minutes of the December meeting, the way I read it and took it is that a decision was made to go out for community consultation, and whether to proceed with traffic calming measures would be dependent on the outcome of that community survey. And as far as I understand, I haven't seen any results, and therefore for me, whether the council will actually proceed with implementing traffic calming measures is completely open and unknown. So if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear it.
So we have actually brought up, the resolution is on the screen in front of you. I'm sorry, it's a neck crane for you to see it from your location, but it does indicate in paragraph 1 that implementation of traffic calming measures are supported for Rutland at select locations, noting, of course, that the select locations are identified within the report. It then indicates option 1 is the preferred approach and approves allocation of budget for that. It does indicate that prior to the procurement, the town is to undertake community engagement for a period of at least 2 weeks to gauge sentiment and feedback on what's being proposed in option 1 and its locations. And Ms Adams has just confirmed that community engagement has taken place and that feedback has come in. But other than that, Ms Adams, is the town of the view that the resolution that was passed by council is not about implementing traffic calming measures on Rutland, or it is about that?
So, Madam Mayor, my understanding is, and particularly given that the town is in the process of trying to procure a contractor to actually install the speed cushions.
So the position is, I'm not sure that we can be a lot clearer than that, Ms Stockman, but there is a resolution to implement them. There has been, and that resolution did require some community engagement before the procurement went ahead, and that did occur back in February. And as Ms Adams points out, at the moment they're trying to procure a contractor to actually deliver them. Okay. But apart from that, there's probably not much more, it appears, that we can tell you at this stage. But information about the outcome of that community engagement is now going to be taken on notice and be in the agenda for the council meeting. So that'll give you an opportunity to see what's said then.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you, because I was definitely very disappointed when I read, the minutes so clearly. There's been, some misunderstanding for, basically since that time. I definitely interpreted it very differently. So I think that's great, and I want to, thank you for the opportunity to just really clarify that today.
Was there any other questions that you had, or did you want to make a statement as well?
Yeah, but I now need to adjust that a little bit. So if you can bear with me where I should pick it up.
Just take your time. It's all fun. Well, there doesn't look like there's anybody else in the public gallery tonight. It's going to eat into your time. Okay. So I'll skip my first bit about the December, resolution. So
I think now, if I don't pick up the my thoughts, is that if you ask me, there's many lessons in what's occurred in relation to Rutland Avenue over the years, decades. As you well know, I've been advocating for something to happen to really, look after vulnerable road users, along this stretch of road for over a decade now. But I actually don't want to dwell on that now and really focus on how we can deliver on what's the highest priority in the town's bike plan. So where we are now is that the town made every effort to secure funding for the two-way option, an additional $6 million, and unfortunately wasn't successful. I believe we should now come to the conclusion that we've given it our all. We tried long and hard, and I think you can honestly say that the town has listened to the other petitioners and done what they asked of the town to do. I believe we now need to draw a line in the sand and move forward with the solution that is possible, which is the one-way option. And I would really like to see a recommendation to proceed with this option tabled ideally at the next OCM and otherwise as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Stockman. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else in the public gallery who wishes to ask questions or make a statement? No, there being no one, I'll close public participation time at 6:56 p.m. Councillor Hamer, you were indicating before that you wish to speak about something. I didn't wish to interrupt members of the public during public participation time.
Yes, I was just going to share that we have received the survey results that were mentioned on one of your replies from the officers on the 20th of this month.
So, Councillor Hamer, I didn't request you to answer the question. That's a matter for the town staff.
Okay.
Thank you. And in any event, the issue's been taken on notice and will be dealt with accordingly at the request of the Chief Operations Officer. So we're now going to go to item 8 on the agenda, which is presentations. There are none. Item 9 is deputations. There are none. Item 10, method of dealing with agenda business. Questions have been received from elected members on a number of items on the agenda. It's those items and those items only that we intend to deal with by way of questions for tonight. I'm going to read out the item numbers in respect of which we're seeking questions. And if you hear an item number that you've already put in questions for that you've decided you no longer wish to ask, please let me know. And equally, if I don't read out an item that you do wish to ask questions on, let me know that too, and we'll add that to the list. So the items are 11.4, efficiencies in council agendas, 12.1, consent to advertise draft revised local planning policy 31, unhosted short-term rental accommodation and residential buildings. 13.1, Rutland Avenue, progress of advocacy for funding. 13.2, 21 Litchfield Street, options and future use business case. 13.3, TVP 2422, FOGO bin supply tender. 13.4, TVP 2421, Verge collection and processing services tender, and 14.3, TVP 2438, integrated infringement management system tender. Now, can I say for elected members that 13.3 and 13.4 at this stage, they're likely to need to be questions dealt in a confidential session. So there is a confidential report to council attached to both those items. So we'll be seeking to deal with the confidential items at the very end because there's already an existing confidential item on the agenda. So 13.3 and 13.4 will not be dealt with in order. We'll deal with them separately at the end as part of the confidential discussion. The other items I've listed, is there any other item that elected members wanted to ask questions about that were not part of my list? No? And is there anyone who heard an item on there that they know they've asked questions about and they no longer wish to ask them tonight? That way I'll be able to manage how many people have got asking questions. Councillor Devereux, you were indicating?
Yeah, I had a question on 13.2.21, the Litchfield building that I received an answer to already. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Devereux. Councillor Cruiser, you wanted to indicate?
My question on 11.4 has already been answered tonight to Mr. Maxwell.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Minson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd still like to ask questions on 11.4 and 13.2.
That's not a problem. I'm not looking at taking those items out because there are other people listed to ask questions about them, so that's fine. All right, thank you. So now we'll proceed to go through these items in the order in which they appear in the agenda, starting with item 11.4, which is efficiencies in council agendas. So, Councillor Minson, you indicated that you have some questions.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mayor. Do other local governments include or equivalent reports on the resolutions of council to council meetings?
Direct that question to Ms Tucker.
Thank you for the question. Each local government does it differently. There's no set process, no set standard, and it depends on what information council want to receive, and also it depends on the circumstances of the local government. So there's no set process. It's normal to have outstanding council resolution reports, and that's something that governance always deal with anyway, because that's something that we track to make sure resolutions are actioned. So that's something that we do. And for this council made the decision back in 2022, I think it was, to receive these resolution reports. And so it's quite appropriate for council to receive those to see also how they're tracking. The officers just think that the location of those resolution reports are probably better suited in a different location rather than in the council agenda.
Councillor Minson.
Thank you. No other questions on that. Thanks.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions myself about this item. Noting what is said in the officer's report about item 7, the confirmation of minutes and received notes from any agenda briefing forum. So the proposal is to simply remove all of the working groups and advisory groups notes from this particular item in the agenda. Is that correct? But otherwise leave it as agenda briefing forum notes and council minutes of both ordinary council meetings and special council meetings. Tucker?
Yes, that's correct. All the other minutes from all the other advisory groups are already listed on our website. So when you go to the governance page where the council minutes are, all those other external group minutes are already listed down there.
All right, thank you. In relation to paragraph 7 of the officer's report, speaking about presentation of minutes from external bodies, it says that since 2022, all the minutes from those organisations have been received by council and their minutes included as an attachment in the associated council report. However, when I had a look back at council agendas since 2020, from what I could see, the minutes of the Municipal Waste Advisory Council were only once included in a council agenda back in September 2021. The minutes of the Walga State Council meetings were only included twice in 2021 and twice in 2022, but not otherwise. And I couldn't find any minutes of a Walga annual general meeting that's ever been included on our council's agendas. So my question is it possible that some efficiency could be generated going forward by council considering that the presentation of minutes from external bodies should be confined to those organisations or external bodies on which an elected member sits directly and not otherwise, which would appear to limit it to Catalina Regional Council, the Development Assessment Panels, the Mindarie Regional Council and the Walga Zone. Is that something that is possible for council to consider? It is a bit of a hybrid of what you're proposing, so there's some things that would come out that wouldn't be needed, but the two regional councils, the Walga zone and the DAP meetings would continue to be a part of it. Ms Tucker?
Thank you for the question. I apologise in relation to the attachments. When I went through all those reports from 2020 and looked at all the ones that were listed in the agendas, I didn't actually go through each individual attachment. So I apologise that clause isn't quite correct, and I can correct that for the council meeting. In relation to having those minutes included in the council report, the recommendation is to have links on our website directly to those organisations. And the reason for that is that sometimes those minutes might be changed, or they might be corrected, or it might be subject to, and I've had this before, a legal challenge when someone's been required to amend or take down some minutes. And the problem is that the governance officers aren't going to be aware if anything's changed. That risk is actually very low, but it is still there. And so the recommendation is to still have those available to council and to the members of the public, which is the intent of what this original recommendation was, to make the public have access to those minutes. So the suggestion is that access to those minutes through a link on our web page would be a better and reflect more accurately those external organisations.
Thank you. I do understand that to be the case, and in fact I thought we had links on our website to these external organisations, but my question actually is it open to council to actually specify those external bodies from whom we wish to continue to receive their external minutes, such as Catalina, Mindari, the DAP and the Walga zone, and excluding the need for things like Walga State Council meetings, of which there's one every month, the Walga annual general meetings and the like, which are not required to really be noted or received by this council. Ms Tucker?
My apologies. Yes, it's completely open to council to make any recommendation that you wish. You can endorse the officer recommendation, change it, or can reject it as well.
All right, thank you. Any other questions about this item? No? All right, that's 11.4. Now come to 12.1, which is consent to advertise the draft revised local planning policy number 31, unhosted short-term rental accommodation and residential buildings. Are there any questions that people have in relation to this particular item? No? In that case, I will ask the questions that I sent through. And I realise that they were sent too late this afternoon to receive answers in advance. So the first question is, in paragraph 27 of the officer's report, reference is made to, and I quote, other habitable room that is capable of use as a bedroom. My first question is, since attachment 12.1.1, which is the draft revised LPP 31, does not contain any definition of bedroom, what is the definition of other habitable room that is capable of use as a bedroom, or is it to be inferred from the last sentence of clause 5.7A1 of 12.1.1? Refer that question to Mr Doy.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. The definition for a habitable room is found under the Codes of Western Australia, so I'll read that out. As defined by the National Construction Code for a room space used for normal domestic activities, that includes a bedroom, living room, lounge room, music room, sitting room, television room, kitchen, scullery, dining room, sewing room, study, playroom, family room, sunroom, gymnasium, fully enclosed swimming pool or patio, but excludes, and then I won't read the long list, but excludes a whole series of other types of rooms as habitable rooms.
Okay, so that went way beyond what I thought it would do. So that suggests that you can have a bedroom in the swimming pool. I'm not sure how that turns out to be an enclosed room that's habitable or suitable for a bedroom, but am I to understand that everything you just said suggests that just about every room in every structure we know as a residential dwelling is suitable of being converted into a bedroom?
No, I can read the long list of ones that cannot be converted if you would like me to.
Please don't. So then I guess my question is it possible then for draft LPP 31 to have some type of link to that definition clause so that those who think this is going to mean every single space in a building can be a habitable room to be used as a bedroom, such that we might get unhosted short-term accommodation where people seek to put 20 people in the house, you know, with several of them in the swimming pool. Mr. Doi?
The answer is yes, we can provide a link to that definition, but they can't stay in the swimming pool.
All right, thank you. Paragraph 30 of the officer's report talks about compliance action being taken for a breach of the approved management plan. Assuming that action would be taken by the town, what is the penalty for such a breach, Mr. Doi?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. That is one I'm going to take on notice and provide in the report.
All right, thank you. We'll take that on notice, thank you. And my next question is, where is the issue of compliance and non-compliance with LPP 31's provisions dealt with, so principally that the public would understand what could be done by them under this policy if there were to be a compliance issue? Mr. Doi?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. That is another one I will take on notice and provide in the further considerations part of the report.
All right, thank you. And I did raise the point about attachment 12.1.1 in clause 5.2.2a, having a sentence that appears to end in the middle of nowhere. Is that something that can be dealt with before we go forward to the OCM, Mr. Doi?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all the questions I had about 12.1. Anyone else have any questions about 12.1? No? All right, we'll move on to 13.1, Rutland Avenue Progressive Advocacy for Funding. Councillor Hamer, you had a question about this?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Vernon. I'll just bring it up. The Rutland question, will this report be updated before the OCM to reflect the public comments made about the town by the state government and how best to proceed with the relationship in relation to further advocacy funds for this project?
Direct that to Ms Adams.
Thank you, through the chair. No, not at this stage. So this report is primarily focused on the matters relating to the Rutland Ave PSP only, so we don't include any commentary on projects that are falling outside the scope of this project. However, in relation to your question about the relationships, we do recognise the importance of maintaining strong relationships with the state government, and we're going to continue to engage constructively in those advocacy efforts.
Anything further, Councillor Hamer?
There is a question touching on from one of the questions from the gallery. Just looking at the community consultation that was received, if the officers are aware of that email, which states, following the recent community consultation, we've received the feedback and assessed the associated safety risks. After careful consideration, applying treatments along the entire route is not warranted at this stage, given the 44.1% respondents were against the proposal of the town. So what does that mean if we're not doing the entirety? How much or how many speed bumps are you looking at tendering at the moment?
So, Councillor Hamer, under the rules, this is about questions about the agenda items only, and your question is not related to this agenda item. This agenda item is about the advocacy efforts for the funding of Rutland Avenue, not about Council's resolution from last year. Do you have any other questions that relate to the agenda item?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions about this agenda item? Councillor Minson.
Thank you, Matt. As part of the advocacy efforts, has there been any recent discussion with the Department of Transport on changes to their position on their view of the, I guess, endorsed Rutland Avenue Principal Shared Path design and any changes to their forward capital planning?
Direct that question to Ms Adams.
Thank you, through the chair. We have had discussions with the Department of Transport. We have reiterated that we are bound by Council's current resolution. So in terms of their progress and what they're doing, I can't comment. I don't know.
Anything further, Councillor Minson?
Yeah, just a follow-up. So I do foresee that the Department of Transport is a feasible avenue for financing this project, that they, do decide to fund the original design or our endorsed design. So could it be included within the planned advocacy that the report mentions going forward to reach out to the Department of Transport to see if they do have the ability to fit it within their capital program for the upcoming financial year.
Ms Adams?
Sorry, through the chair, can I just ask for clarification if Councillor Minson is talking about additional funding from the Department of Transport in addition to what has been already publicly advised?
Councillor Minson?
Yeah, so to clarify, I guess that the report at the moment mentions, it refers to, I guess, seeking funding from, when we say the government, we're talking about, I guess, political representative politicians, and it being election commitments or things like that, or a commitment through the MP to pursue it. But I guess there is, the typical process for the Department of Transport would be that they would formulate a capital works program, and we know that Rutland Avenue was on it in the past, and that they came and said, we currently can't afford it in its current method. We all know the history. So I guess I'm asking, has there been advocacy, or has there been recent communication even to say if they still hold that position, or if there would be any changes, considering we're in probably the period where they would be formulating their capital works program for the next financial year?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, I understand that the commitment from Department of Transport remains as is. In terms of what they're committing in the future budget, I'm unclear if that means you're asking if they'd consider the additional $6 million. I do believe that at the moment their position is that is all they have allocated, and as for future, I don't know.
Just to, I guess, follow that, I guess, could we include finding out whether or not their position has changed within this advocacy proposal? So to reach out to the Department of Transport to say whether or not that's still the same position.
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, I can just seek clarification of their position.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Minson? Thank
That's all,
you.
thanks.
So I also have a question. In terms of the officer's report about this item, there's reference to a list of the advocacy that was undertaken by myself and the CEO, which appears in paragraph 8. And I note that it does not refer to the CEO and myself's meeting with Hannah Beasley, the local member, on the 25th of February, where the significant issue discussed was our advocacy on Rutland Avenue, to which the honourable member expressed her support for the town's advocacy and the project going forward, and explained to us that she was continuing to work on it, but with the current caretaker period for the election, she wouldn't be in a position to discuss that with us at any further length until after the election. So I guess my question is the reason why that hasn't been referred to in the officer's report, Ms Adams.
Madam Mayor, I will check with my team on that oversight and include any reference to that in the further considerations.
All right, thank you. So we'll take that on notice if we could, so that we get an update on that. Mr CEO, since you attended that meeting, is there anything that you wish to add with relation to that may be useful for elected members and the public to hear?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon, and yes, apologies for the omission. We did meet with the elected member. We have reached out to meet with her again, but agree with your comments. She did support the project, or express support for the project, without necessarily clarifying exactly what that support might entail.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions about this item? Councillor Devereux.
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Just picking up on the question from the community about timing, would it be logical to assume that if there was further funding that would be announced as part of the state budget when that is brought down?
Ms Adams, is that a question for you, or are you happy for the CEO to take that? I come to the CEO, I think it's probably more of a higher level advocacy question. Mr Askew?
Thank you, Mayor Vernon, and thank you for the question, Councillor Devereux. I think, yes, I think your assumption or assertion is probably correct. We'd be looking for some sort of an announcement through the budget process, which is probably September.
Councillor Devereux?
The budget would be in September, is that correct?
Mr Askew?
It's my assumption.
Okay. So then if, can I ask then if there wasn't an inclusion of this budget item in the September state budget, then would that be considered an appropriate time to consider alternative approaches to the delivery of the project?
Mr Askew?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything further from anyone about this item? No? All right, we're moving on then to item 13.2, which is 21 Litchfield Street Options and Future Use Business Case. Councillor Minson, you've got some questions?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Does the proposed 60,000 budget for demolition include any landscaping for the lot after the property is demolished?
Direct that question to Ms Adams.
Through the chair, no, it does not.
Thank you. Does the Better Parks program proposal to use the budget to do reticulation and grassing have adequate allocation to undertake those additional restoration works without any impact to the program's current proposed scope?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, yes, I understand the Better Parks program does have adequate allocation.
Thank you. And is there any risk, I guess, with the current proposal that due to timing of those two projects that we do end up leaving the site unrestored for a period?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, yes, potentially. I mean, ideally, we would like the works to continue one after the other, but there is that potential, yes.
Thank you. Is there, I guess, then a benefit to, rather than split the scope of this over two projects, to have the current proposal to have a $60,000 allocation in this coming budget for the demolition, to increase that by the proposed 10 to 15,000 for it to be all wrapped up in one project?
Ms Adams?
Through the chair, there is reference in the report, I'm just trying to find that reference, to the potential for other works to be considered as part of the 25-26 budget, which would better activate the space. Just trying to find that. I think it's in item 35. So it just depends, I suppose, on whether or not we just do the works and keep it at a bare minimum, or perhaps look to integrate some of those suggested works as part of 35D.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Minson. I've got some questions for the town about this item. The first one brings in both the attachment 13.2.1, the business case, as well as the officer report. So the first page of the business case refers to the property, defines it as a 100 square metre building with an ancillary fenced enclosure, and the report refers to the property as comprising lots 129 and 130. So my first question is, which lot is the building on and which lot is the ancillary fenced enclosure on?
So, Madam Mayor, the main building is on lot 130, and there is a bit of an overhang that actually extends partly into lot 129, just with the overhang. And the ancillary fenced enclosure is straddling both lots 129 and 130.
Okay, so looking at the business case then that has an aerial photograph of the area which shows a building marked in red and then an area right behind it, which is showing something with a white roof, which I take to be the shed, and then a bit of, I'll call it grass space for want of a better word, which looks like it has a fence around it and very little shrubs. Which is a part of the, I'll call it the house for want of a better word, that is overhanging into the back area? Is that right, Ms. Adams?
Yes, Madam Mayor. There is actually a picture further down. I'm just trying to find which page. It actually has a photo of the outhouse, and you can see that there is an overhang. It does, the overhead picture shown on the plan does make it a bit difficult to discern because of the shadowing and the eaves.
So this is the one that appears right out the back of the house, looking like it's a shed with an open door area, and you can see what looks like sinks inside it. Is that it? Yeah. So is that where the boundary lots of 129 and 130 fall, somewhere in there?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So my next question is, the building is stated in the report to be, and this is the business case, to be 100 square metres, and the fenced enclosure is 330 square metres. Is the total area of lots 129 and 130 a combined 330 square metres, or is it actually the building space and then the fenced enclosure are actually two different square meterages?
So, Madam Mayor, the building is the 100 square metres. That enclosure is the 330. The lots they sit on actually encompass the sumps that are actually present on the site. So the sumps actually go right through. So each lot, 129 and 130, are each 1,012 square metres.
All right, thank you. That might help with formulating what I might be thinking of. But so are lots 129 and 130 capable of being dealt with separately, Ms. Adams?
Madam Mayor, potentially yes. It does depend on what's being proposed. So each lot actually has a large sump and is it's also subject to the deed of trust.
Thank you. If there were to be a new facility built in this location, would lots 129 and 130 need to be amalgamated for such a facility, noting that the business case talks about a building could be put in place of the existing one. The cost is said to be around $450,000 to $500,000, which I'm assuming would fit within the footprint of what's already there marked up on the mud map for us as being the house and the fenced enclosure ancillary to the house. Ms. Adams?
Madam Mayor, again, the use is limited to recreation by the public. And in terms of the planning, I would take that on notice unless Mr. Doy has any further insight from a planning point of view.
Might be a bit short notice for Mr. Doy to be able to look into that one so quickly. Mr. Doy?
It's quite a strange land configuration, and there would have to be some type of subdivision process. It would be hiving lot 21, or sorry, number 21 away from lot 130 and 129 to create its own lot, but it's really quite a bizarre layout. So we'll take it on notice and provide some information in the further consideration part of the report.
All right, thank you. Given the recreation restriction on use of the property in the deed of trust, what are the potential uses that could be made of this property that fall under recreation? Ms Adams?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We did have a quick look at this question, and I've got quite a detailed advice, including the wording of the trust. So I can take it on notice and provide that after, or I can read it now.
Happy for you to take it on notice. I note in the internal engagement section of this report that the place planning team referred to the Albany Highway Precinct Structure Plan and the need for community space in the vicinity as per the social infrastructure strategy. Apart from the report from the officers generally referring to returning these lots to add to the parkland and using the Better Parks program for Reed Park in the next budget, my first question is, have any other community space options from the social infrastructure strategy been considered? Mr Doy?
If I'm understanding the question properly, the social infrastructure strategy and any reference within the Albany Highway Precinct Structure Plan to social infrastructure doesn't make any specific recommendations for this building. What it does do, though, is identify opportunities within the community benefits framework for social infrastructure at a small scale and new development, which could potentially occur around this park, but it doesn't make any specific recommendations around 21 Litchfield Street.
All right, thank you. And my next question, I think, also will need to go to Mr Doy. Have any public open space activation type options been considered for the space where this house currently is? Mr Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. And this may provide some further information for Councillor Minson's previous question as well. The answer is no, but we have been planning Reed Park to come into the Better Parks program for the 2025-26 financial year. And so there is an opportunity, as mentioned before, to bring the space that is created from the demolition into the Better Parks, into the Reed Park design. There is an amount that's been identified at the moment for the work, but it is open for discussion with elected members through the budget process for Reed Park.
Okay, all right, thank you. Those are my questions about this item. Is there anyone else who's got any questions about this? Councillor Minson?
Just to follow up on that and just to clarify, so the current proposal under the Better Parks program for Reed Park, that doesn't have a design yet.
Mr Doy?
No, it doesn't. So it's going through some early work at the moment, but it doesn't have a finalised design. It's certainly going through some feasibility and an understanding of the sites and its constraints, but it doesn't have a fully fledged design yet.
And you see it as, I guess, a possibility that if this was, the building were to be demolished, and at that point there was no additional restoration works having been done yet, that lot then would be considered, or where the house would be considered in that design process to see whether or not it would have opportunity as part of that Better Parks program to use that additional space in any way.
Mr Doy?
Thanks, Mayor Vernon. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Minson. Anything further on this item? No? All right, we'll move on then to 14.3, which is TVP 2438 Integrated Infringement Management System. Councillor Hamer, you had some questions?
Yes, thanks, Mayor Vernon. The first question is, what is the cost of the current system that handles this process for the town? And is this more expensive or will offer some more cost savings due to automation and time saving?
refer that question to the Chief Financial Officer, Mr Old.
The town's current system is only for handheld devices, and our administration officers use a range of additional in-house systems to manage the infringement lifecycle. In March 2024, officers conducted a critical review of our system in partnership with Telstra Purple that identified several issues and delays with our current systems. The new system addresses the new system addresses the issues found within that review by centralising our process into one system, transitioning to a cloud-based software, and enhancing our integration between third-party systems. The new system is more expensive, but was deemed best value for money after conducting the request for tender process. The new system enables customers to pay their infringements instantly. Currently, it's a 24-hour delay. Reduce the time to upskill staff to manage the infringement process. Competency can take up to 6 to 12 months using the multiple systems currently in use, and checking vehicle compliance will be done in seconds using an inbuilt license plate recognition software within the handheld devices. So it's difficult to quantify any dollar amount. It is a lot of minute efficiencies, and it will take some time to see if there is any savings.
Thanks for that. There was one more question that we didn't send in previously, but using the approximate data of 9,000 fines per year that the town's handling, what is the estimated cost per fine of using this system over the year?
Mr Old?
The tender report has a price listed in there of in the order of $200,000 from memory. But by fine basis, there is a fixed component, so we'll pay a certain. I can clarify some of this and take some of this on notice, I think, Mayor. There is a fixed component which we just pay regardless of how many fines we process, and there is a per fine fee, but I'll have to get that information to hand. So I'll take this question on notice.
All right, thank you. We'll take that on notice. Anything further, Councillor Hanna?
No, that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor... I had you listed down actually as 5 questions. 3 questions and then 2 questions, but you're content you've got all your answers? All right. Any further questions on this item? No? All right. Then that is the remainder of the items on the list, except for those that are to be discussed confidentially. So... I'm now going to move that Council closes this forum to the members of the public at 7:38 p.m. To consider items 13.3, 13.4 and 19.1 in accordance with section 5.23 of the Local Government Act. And secondly, to permit staff to stay for items 13.3 and 13.4, and for only the Manager of Governance and Strategy to stay for item 19.1 in the Council chamber in accordance with clause 27 subsection 3A of the Town's Meeting Procedures Local Law. Can I have a seconder, please, for that? Seconded. Okay. All right. Well, I'd sort of seconder Deputy Mayor Ife said she did. Is there any dissent to the proposal that we close the meeting? No? All right. On that basis, we'll now close the meeting at 7:38 p.m. and I assume that the record... All right, so it's 8:30 p.m. And recording has resumed for the agenda briefing. The matters that were to be dealt with as confidential items has been concluded, and there being no further members in the public gallery, there's no requirement for further public participation time, but noting that item 15 is committee reports, there are none. Motions of which previous notice has been given, none. Public participation time is concluded because there's no one left. Item 18, questions from members without notice on general matters. Are there any? No. Item 19 we have already dealt with, so there being no further business of this forum, I declare it closed at 8:31 p.m. Thank you everyone, thank you members of the staff, and thank you to those who joined us on live streaming. We're concluded.